Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani, and I'm back again with another episode of Rudy's Common Sense. Today's episode is going to raise the question that nobody seems to want to raise, but everyone is talking about. I know everyone is talking about it in Europe because over the course of the last week and a half, as Biden blundered his way through a critical set of European meetings, I was asked a question numerous times. And then, of course, on radio, on my radio show, and in just social gatherings. The question comes in different forms. Is the president all there? Does he know what he's doing? Does he have Alzheimer's? Does he have dementia? Is he brain affected? I think someone said. I said, what do you mean brain affected? Well, like he doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, there have been many examples of this now for quite some time, and I'll refer you back to a podcast of mine that is now over a year and a half old, I think. I'll get the exact one before we're finished, but it was with two doctors. If you've been following me since then, you might remember it because it was kind of controversial, but the two doctors were firmly of the opinion that the president, then the presidential candidate, Joseph Biden, was suffering from, one called it a mild progressive form of dementia. The other called it a pretty serious and quickly progressing, meaning deteriorating form of dementia. And they went through chapter and verse. Much of it was done not by examining him, which of course, leaves it an opening for doubt and for what I would use as a lawyer in questioning in court. But they did have available something usually not available for most people, which is his public statements going back 30 years, and particularly most relevant, the last 5 or 10. So they examined speeches of his, debates when he ran for vice president originally with Obama, when he ran in the primaries that he lost to Hillary Clinton, and then now. And both of them said there was a marked difference in his language, in his pace of language, in how he turned from a fast speaker to a slow speaker, how he seemed much more deliberate in his words. And there's no question that there was a loss of brain function just in the way he spoke. And then some very, very telltale signs of not being able to remember names, losing your train of thought in the middle of a sentence, one of the more serious attributes. And of course, the big symptom, loss of short-term memory, which goes before long-term memory. And in some cases, it goes very acutely. He had a form of it that one doctor described as typifying a strong case of dementia, and that was losing recollection of what he was talking about in the middle of a sentence. Now, you remember incidents like that, where he'll be talking about something he can't remember, and then he gets all befuddled. The other thing that indicates a very advanced case is when they use stock phrases when they can't remember anymore, like, I pledge allegiance to the flag, that thing. That thing is actually an example used in the DSM-5. So I don't think I'm bringing up anything that hasn't been brought up. And I think among non-prejudiced, non-brainwashed, honest people, this is a real question. But it's gone from just a question of curiosity, which it never was, to a question of, is he putting the national security of the United States in grave jeopardy by the things that he's doing, particularly now after this last 2 or 3 months. So let's go over it carefully enough so that we get it in our heads and we see what we think, okay? First, let's start with the fact that there's an amendment to the United States Constitution. It's the 25th Amendment. It's entitled Presidential Vacancy, Disability, and Inability. And let's read the part that would let's read the part that would apply to him, and that would be really Section 4, because I don't see him personally transmitting. He should a statement to the Senate and the Speaker of the House saying that he's incapacitated. He is, but I don't think he would do that. He might actually forget to do it, even if he decided to do it. But Section 4 reads as follows. Whenever the vice president and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress may by law provide, transmit to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the vice president shall immediately assume the powers and duties of the office as acting president. Thereafter, when the president transmits to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House his written declaration that no inability exists, he shall resume powers and duties of office unless the vice president and a majority of either the principal office of the executive department or of such other body as Congress may by law provide transmits within 4 days to the president, et cetera, basically their objection. And then there would be a trial very similar to an impeachment, and it would have to be a 2/3 vote in order to basically take away from him the duties of president. Differently, however, it says that should they make that decision, the vice president shall continue to discharge the same as acting president. It doesn't seem. And then they go on and give some examples of presidents who were disabled. So the question is does he fit within that category, or enough within that category that hearings are really necessary and should take place for the good of the country? Can he carry out the duties of the office of President of the United States without doing great harm to the people of the United States and to the peace of the world? That's the question before us. So let's look at an isolated, but not so isolated situation of the last few months, because this is the one that I think really pushed it in everybody's face. And that is this whole situation with Ukraine and about whether we should have troops in Ukraine, whether we should in any way confront the Russians. For a long time, certainly starting in December of last year, Joseph Biden repeated over and over again that he will not send troops to Ukraine. Every time the issue of Putin adding troops at the border, both the eastern border, the north border, he responded, making it clear that there would be grave consequences. But no troops, no troops, no troops. We will not commit troops. No troops on the ground. No boots on the ground. No troops on the ground. We will not confront the Soviets. We will not have World War III. We will not confront the Soviets. We will not have World War III. I don't know. I could play it for you 20 times, all through December, a little bit of January. Let me just play one. Let me just play one. Let me just play one for you, so that you get. So I don't know. So you get the feeling of it. And I always like to. I always like in these podcasts to prove to you what I'm saying, because the Democrats never do. They never produce proof. They produce slogans like it was debunked. The investigation of Biden's mass bribery was debunked. Well, when they said that, I said, show me the debunking report. There is none. And now, of course, the hard drive proves that they pulled out at least 41 million from the Chinese communists and about 8 to 14 million from Ukraine and from the most crooked man in Ukraine. It proves it. You don't see it in the papers. The Times has validated it, but it doesn't tell you what it validated. Here, the evidence.
The idea the United States is going to unilaterally use force to confront Russia invading Ukraine is not in the cards right now. But what will happen is there will be severe consequences that will have.
So you've known Vladimir Putin.
Well, you know, the severe consequences were also supposed to be the sanctions that never happened before the invasion, which I think many people feel might have prevented it had he acted before the invasion. And we'll see there's a major contradiction and dispute about that. Just in case you think he gave it up, you know, like he gave up this idea of troops, and it got a little confusing. Oh gosh, just about a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago, and this was referring to the no-fly zones, where he didn't want to do a no-fly zone because he was afraid there might be confrontation between a Russian pilot and an American pilot, and this could lead to World War III. So, like any kind of disturbance could lead to World War III, or at least that's what he believed and was saying at the time. Let's listen to that one.
Putin's war against Ukraine was never be a victory. We will not fight the Third World War in Ukraine. Putin's war against Ukraine was never be a victory.
So we're not going to fight in Ukraine, right? And I could go on and we could have statements about, remember the MiGs. So Poland wanted to give MiGs to Ukraine because Ukraine knows how to fly MiGs. They don't know how to fly our aircraft. Well, we weren't going to give them ours anyway, but they asked us if we would back up those MiGs with some of our aircraft because the Polish army knows how to use our aircraft. This seemed like a relatively small thing to do for a country in this kind of jeopardy, for which he's expressing this enormous sympathy, and from which, by the way, he made about 8 to 14 million illegally. So you think you feel a little something for them. Not yet. No to that too. You remember that. I don't have to play you that one, do I? You remember that, right? No to the MiGs even. So why does he do all this? Why is he freezing them out? Why is Zelensky constantly complaining that Biden is too little and too late? Because if we take Biden at his word 50 times, he's very sensitive to creating a confrontation with Russia and Putin so we don't have an atomic war. And then out of nowhere, when he gets to Europe, he goes and talks to our very brave, very, very effective 82nd Airborne, who were there in Poland. And he says something that if you looked at the faces of these guys, they have to have been saying to themselves, this is the commander-in-chief? Think your homeowner's insurance covers home title fraud? Think again. And neither does your common identity theft program. The FBI calls home title fraud one of the fastest growing crimes, which is why you need to go to HomeTitleLock.com, America's leader in home title protection. Here's the problem. The deed to your home is the only document that proves you own it. And the deeds to all of our homes now are online. In minutes, a criminal can find and forge your name off the deed to your home and refile as the new owner. Like Jeff, who spent a fortune in legal fees after a thief forged himself onto the deed to Jeff's home and took out loans. Jeff didn't have home title lock then. He does now. Or Deborah, who thought our common identity theft service would protect her. Then a criminal got onto the deed to a home and had her evicted. Deborah has home title lock now. HomeTitleLock.com is your peace of mind, and the deed to your home is protected. Visit HomeTitleLock.com. HomeTitleLock.com. So, now let's listen to the president addressing our airmen who are at the point of the spear. correct? Remember their state of mind. Their state of mind is they've been hearing for December, January, we're not engaging with the Russians. We're not putting troops in the ground. We're not having a no-fly zone. And we're not going to have MiGs there because we don't want to have any possibility of any kind of confrontation with the Russians. So they're there if, God forbid, a NATO nation is attacked. But they're not anticipating in any way, nor would they, that they're going to be going into Ukraine. Let's listen to this.
You're going to see when you're there, some of you have been there, you're going to see women, young people standing in the middle in front of a damn tank, just saying, I'm not leaving. I'm holding my ground.
Could we play that one more time? I mean, this could be. I also want you to listen to his tone of voice. I don't know if you have a tape of him 10 years ago, listen to it. Tell me he isn't mentally ill with that tone of voice. Tell me he doesn't have a mental deficiency. Remember, the men he's talking to have been told for months that they're not going to battle in Ukraine. All of a sudden, he tells them what they're going to see inside Ukraine. You think it might have confused them? Let's play it one more time, please, because I've had idiots call me up trying to explain this, like Biden himself said I was talking about Poland. They run down kids with tanks in Poland.
You're going to see when you're there, some of you have been there, you're going to see women, young people standing in the middle in front of a damn tank, just saying, I'm not leaving. I'm holding my ground.
Now, it'd be one thing if he hadn't said anything, and this is a slip of something that's going to happen. This isn't going to happen. This is not a slip of something that's going to happen. It'd be another thing if he only mentioned once or twice that we weren't going to Poland. I don't know, you go count, he mentioned it 20 times. He only mentioned it 2 days earlier. He can't remember what he said over and over and over and over and over again. No troops on the ground, not going into Ukraine. No participation in a no-fly zone, so there's no confrontation with Putin. He can't remember that? What do we have to do to get the New York Times to write an editorial saying he should be put under serious examination for mental competence? What does he have to do? Forget his name? Walk out and not be able to speak at all? Do you think it was also rather cruel to mislead these airmen? I mean, these are the bravest guys in the world, but I'm telling you, the night before a battle, you can be the bravest guy in the world. If you're not nervous, you're not normal. All of a sudden, they got to be walking out of there saying, did things change? Are we going into Ukraine tomorrow? What the hell kind of president is he? And nobody pulls him aside and says, Mr. President, what you did to these troops is unconscionable. Please, would you go out and straighten it out? Explain to them you meant Poland, or lie to them like you do anyway. You lie all the time anyway. So tell them you forgot. You forgot the 25 times you said we weren't going to go into Ukraine. And he's not sick. And this isn't important to our national security. The 82nd Airborne? Well, I mean, it went from bad to worse, right? Didn't it? It went from bad to worse. Now, here we have 2 or 3 months of, we look like the biggest cowards in the world because we're so afraid of nuclear war that we're stalemated. You can almost get anything out of us if you just say nuclear war. So let's take a short break, and we'll be right back, and we'll take a look at part 2 of this, where we go from very, very surely a man who is sick to a man who is definitely really demented. Not long ago, Mike Lindell, the inventor of MyPillow, and his team fit me for my very own MyPillow. They also introduced me to their wide assortment of other incredible products, like their mattress topper, their sheets, towels, slippers, and more. Sleep is incredibly important to me, and I can assume for all of you. It's time you give MyPillow a try and see for yourself. Listeners have helped build MyPillow into the incredible company it is today, and Mike Lindell wants to give back to all of you. You can get great discounts on MyPillow products by going to mypillow.com right now and seeing each of the specially priced items, including those in the radio listener special square. You're going to see rotational offers up to 66% off on products like their pillows, mattress topper, Giza sheets, but also new products like their slippers, weighted blankets, robes, and waffle blankets. All MyPillow products come with a 60-day money-back guarantee. Enter promo code Rudy for these great specials. That's mypillow.com and use the promo code Rudy. This is Rudy Giuliani back with you on Rudy's Common Sense, and we're examining the mental state of a president of the United States who is putting the lives and safety of the American people and other people in the world in grave jeopardy. His mental incapacity has already cost us numerous lives. Think about Afghanistan. Think about withdrawing the troops before the civilians when the country's surrounded by terrorists. That's the act of a sane man. Huh? I mean, that's not political. That's not part of even the Democrat hate America, give up America to the Chinese doctrine. Although, how about giving up Bagram Air Base 400 miles from China when China is our biggest enemy? What's that? Is that a sane decision? Miley should be getting examinations. That so-called general, I believe, said that Bagram was not strategically important. I'm not a general. I don't have any stars on here. You know what I do have, though? I got brains here. You know, these brains work only for the United States. I don't care who the hell you are, Miley. An air base 400 miles from China is not only of strategic importance to the United States, it is of enormous strategic importance to the United States. You don't think a president of the United States one of these days is going to need that air base to defend the United States, possibly against China, and it's not going to be there? Oh, and you forgot to mention it's only 500 miles from the Iran that you want to make nuclear. Ain't too far from Russia either.
For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power. For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power.
This is the guy, he didn't want to give him MiGs because it could get Putin upset and start a war. This is the guy they've been telling us is Putin is a little crazy. Remember, he's going a little crazy? You say that to a guy who's got the capacity to possibly destroy half the world if you think he's a little crazy? That's not going to get him more upset than a no-fly zone, which happens all the time. So now think of this. For 3 months, he's saying, I'm not going to put troops in Ukraine. And then he gets in front of the troops and says, you're going to be in Ukraine. Did he forget? Is his short-term memory so shot that he forgot that for that period of time, he was promising and promising and promising? When he said that about Putin, and there's a lot more about Putin that you can read about. When he said that about Putin, about taking out Putin, did he forget all the times that he said that he didn't want to aggravate Putin or disturb things or get things to the point where there might be confrontation between us? If that were really so, he would never have said that, or if he had remembered it, he never would have said it. So what's he talking about? What is he talking about in taking Putin out? He's talking about something that would, I think, actually have more of a capacity to ignite a irrational reaction if Putin were inclined to an irrational reaction, as their propaganda, either theirs or ours or both, tried to get us to believe, than saying you're going to take him out. But then this is a day or two later. Let's listen to the questions and answers from his nemesis, Mr. Ducey.
Are you worried that other leaders in the world are going to start to doubt that America is back if some of these big things that you say on the world stage keep getting walked back?
What's getting walked back?
It made it sound like, just in the last couple days, it sounded like you told U.S. troops they were going to Ukraine. It sounded like you said it was possible the U.S. would use a chemical weapon, and it sounded like you were calling for regime change in Russia, and we know...
None of the three occurred.
None of the three occurred?
None of the three.
Mr. President?
You interpret the language that way. I was talking to the troops. We're talking about helping train the troops that are the Ukrainian troops that are in Poland. That's what the context. I sat there with those guys for a couple hours. That's what we talked about.
So when you said you're going to see when you're there, you were not intending to
I was
say
referring to meeting with and talking with the Ukrainian troops that were in Poland.
And when you said a chemical weapon use by Russia would trigger a response in kind.
It will trigger a significant response.
What does that mean?
I'm not going to tell you. Why would I tell you? You got to be silly.
The world wants to know?
The world wants to know a lot of things. I'm not telling them what the response would be. Then Russia knows the response.
He actually wants you to believe that when he told them that they were going to go into the country, they were going to see tanks. Oh my goodness! I mean, what else? What else did he say they would see? This is the height of insanity that we're dealing with here. This is the height of insanity.
You're going to see when you're there.
Listen.
Some of you have been there. You're going to see women, young people standing in the middle of front of a damn tank.
That's not happening in Poland.
I'm not leaving.
That's not happening in Poland. That's not happening in Poland. That's happening in Ukraine. He just told Ducey he was talking about Poland. Does he remember? Does he lie? Does he do both? Definitely a lot of it's not remembering. The memory's gone. I mean, he couldn't be so stupid as to say this after weeks of saying we're not going to go into Ukraine if he had a memory left. President without a memory left. I mean, he can say and do a lot of things that we're going to kill a lot of people. I mean, his incapacity has already killed 13 American brave military people that should have been out of there. I mean, that should have been done through Bagram, the air base they shouldn't have given away. The civilians should have been taken out first. Then the soldiers would have been able to make an orderly exit because they weren't going to confront the soldiers if they weren't going to get at the civilians. And he still left Americans behind there. They're still behind. First American president to act so dishonorably. It's as a bigger tragedy for us, the people in the United States. We've never had a president like this at a time like this. I don't know, maybe if we were at times of placid peace, it'd be different. But to have a president that can't remember from one day to the next what he said? Man should be removed if we had patriots in this country. Let's conclude with one last one, just to have your last memory be of a president who can't remember what the hell he's talking about. You know, when he went to Europe, he said, sanctions don't deter. You remember that? When he went to Europe, he said, sanctions don't deter. Do you know how often in the build-up to this war, his Bidenistas explained to us how important sanctions were? They were even better than going to war. Once again, 3 months, 4 months of telling us how effective sanctions are. He tells us sanctions don't work. Out of nowhere. It just comes out of nowhere. His Secretary of State was almost at exactly the same time still on the old script that sanctions work. Sanctions don't work. They'll make you poorer, but you must keep them in place anyway. Just think about that now. Sanctions don't work. They're going to make you poorer, but you should keep them in place. Doesn't that mean that sanctions hurt the United States and we shouldn't keep them in place? I mean, I don't believe he's right. I'm trying to, I'm not a psychiatrist. I am a little bit of a philosopher and a logician. I want to see how this works. Sanctions don't work to deter Russia from destroying Ukraine. Sanctions hurt the United States. But we're going to keep them in place, have no effect on Russia, and hurt the people of the United States. And you're the president of the United States. And you shouldn't be removed. Think about it, okay? Think about it very seriously. This is no joke. I know at times when we see him forgetting who he is, forgetting who his wife is, I pledge allegiance to the flag, you know that thing. We laugh, you know. There's nothing to laugh at. It's a matter of life and death. He's killed people. I haven't even talked about what a crook he is. So, once again, let's keep up our call to action. How about we add now to our emails to the Senate, the Congress? You can leave the White House out of this because those guys aren't going to do anything about it. Well, do it the White House too if you want. And just say, will you please get rid of the president with dementia? We'll be back very shortly with another episode. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.